The entire galaxy once agreed on a single, very simple law. Let humans sleep. Do not disturb. Were used stories where humans are everywhere, making a mess of things. But here, they're gone from the stage, sealed away, and the most advanced civilizations treat them like something too dangerous or too important to wake. I've always been fascinated by that flip. Not fear the monster, but fear what happens when the kind ones start fixing your systems too well. It really makes you wonder what a species must have done, not with weapons, but with ideas, to earn a law like that. So you and I are going to sit with that for a moment. A galaxy held together by treaties and transit routes, quietly built on the work of humans who then asked to be left alone. And then, one night, the structure holding everything together starts to strain. Stay with that tension as we slip inward, past the normal stars and the busy worlds, to a hollowed-out moon called the Kestrel Archive, where every dangerous idea is locked away, because somewhere in its deepest ring, an archivist named Seren Vale is staring at a single forbidden door. And for the first time in 9,000 years, the systems behind it are waking up. Picture a moon that is not a moon. It hangs in the dark between stars, slow and steady, lit only by the soft shine of its own shield, lights, and the cold glow of distant suns. No cities, no crowds, just long halls, sealed chambers, and shelves that never end. This is the Kestrel Archive. Every dangerous idea the galaxy has ever tried to hide is stored here. Every strange device that scared a council, every experiment that ran too far, every question that leaders wanted locked away, all of it rests in this quiet place. Watched over by careful eyes, in the deepest level of the archive, there is a single door, unlike any other. It is smooth and pale, marked in a language that almost no one living speaks anymore. The warning on it is simple: let humans sleep. Do not disturb. Most days, the door does nothing. It is only a rule written a very long time ago. But tonight, as the galaxy's grand Treaty Lattice begins to fail, tiny alarms stir in the hidden systems behind that door. Far above, in a dim control gallery, an archivist named Seren Vale looks up from a calm shift to see an alert that has never appeared before. It carries a quiet message from an ancient law, a message that was supposed to stay buried forever. For the lattice to survive, do not wake humans as weapons. You need to ask them for help. The Kestrel Archive did not turn or spin. It floated in a stable drift beyond the Orion spur, held in place by old gravity anchors and the gentle pull of nothing much at all. From outside, it looked lifeless, a dull rock with a faint halo of navigation lights. From inside, it felt like an endless library built into a hollow moon, with halls that curved and bent until even veteran staff carried position beacons. Seren Vale had worked here for 72 Accord years, and still had not walked all of it. Seren sat at a console in Gallery 7, hands resting lightly on the surface, bioluminescent marks along their forearms pulsing in slow, even patterns. The gallery was dim, as the Lyrans preferred. Screens floated in the air like calm pools of light. Status streams scrolled past in quiet order. Vault temperatures holding, containment fields stable. Catalog integrity green across 1,000 items. This was how Saren liked the archive. Quiet, predictable, untouched by politics. Lyrans were known across the Accord for restraint. Their glow swirl markings, which brightened with agitation, made lying difficult and drama embarrassing. So their culture had leaned into calm. Archivists like Saren were trained from early life to hold two truths at once. That knowledge must be preserved without judgment, and that certain things are safer sealed than shared. Even so, there were items that troubled Saren more than others. On the far left of the main console, a single entry sat boxed in a pale border. It had no temperature graph, no handling log, no recent activity. It was just a still record with a single icon. Beneath it, old text remained unchanged. Cryovault Eidolon-7 status. Forbidden by oldest law notation. Let humans sleep. Do not disturb. Saren's gaze drifted there often during slow shifts. Like now, it was not curiosity about violence or power. It was the tone of the rule that unsettled them. Most dangerous things in the archive carried hard warnings. Do not activate. Do not approach. Do not consent to any network. This human vault was different. The words sounded almost gentle. Let humans sleep. For damn. Happened, behave. They did not threaten. They asked. Saren had studied every allowed document about humans back when joining the archive staff. Humans were listed as extinct in normal space, though in the archive's deeper files they were marked as indefinite absence. They were called prolific thinkers, rapid adapters, rule breakers in both good and bad ways. They had helped design early versions of the Treaty Lattice, then had withdrawn from public life, leaving only a trail of strange half-complete designs and the clear warning that no one should wake them without cause, because it had never been defined. Saren's supervisor, a crystalline being named Nixa of Glass, had once said in a private lesson, "The oldest law is usually written in apology, not in confidence." Not in confidence. Remember that, Saren. Lawmakers often fear the things they owe, not the things they hate. Saren had thought about that for years, looking at the line. Let humans sleep. Do not disturb. Tonight, the rest of the archive still glowed green on the status boards. Curved corridors glided by on remote cameras. Stasis fields hummed around silver devices and dark prisms that should never see an open sky again. Saren adjusted a few parameters for a volatile plasma seed in Vault 19, double-checked a quantum lock on a time-locked pod, and signed off on a maintenance bot's route. Then a light blinked where no light should ever blink. It was not an alarm, not yet. Just a faint amber point at the edge of the main display. tied to a process Saren rarely needed to think about. Treaty Lattice overlay. Saren expanded it. The Treaty Lattice map unfolded in front of them, a full sky projection of routes, portals, and agreements that held the unified accord together. To most citizens, the lattice was only politics written in travel permissions and trade depths. To the archive, it was more. The lattice had physical binding in space-time. Based on an old design humans had helped move from theory to practice, now small areas of the map flickered. Not red, not failure, but strained. A few key junctions pulsed with slow warning colors. Strange timing, Saren said softly. Though no one else sat in the gallery, they called up the lattice logs. The failures were not complete breaches, they were stress fractures. In certain regions, border terms and gravitational routes were fighting each other, as if they had been pulled too tight between rival claims. Trade gates opened slower, then closed with a tired flicker. Data passed through with minor losses. On their own, these things were tiny. Taken together, they formed a pattern. Saren watched their own forearms brighten a shade. Calm, they reminded themselves. This is information, not an attack. Berths of text opened as Saren pulled related notices. Border disputes between mid-tier species, resource quotas contested, transit priorities challenged. All things the Council usually settled with firm votes and stern speeches. But the lattice overlay showed a second truth. Every new dispute placed strain, not just on law, but on the structure that carried ships and signals. The map flickered again. This time, a small warning ran along the bottom. Core ACC requesting archive linked analysis. Saren frowned. Oldest law index, they repeated, tasting the phrase. They tapped the notice, pulling up a cross-reference. The archive responded with a modest list, barely a dozen items long. These were entries flagged by the founders of the Unified Accord as foundational constraints. The Treaty Lattice could not be adjusted around them. They were base rules, not to be violated. Most of the entries were familiar. Bans on temporal weapons, strict controls on self-replicating swarms, the neutral status of medical aid stations. Saren had seen those before, but near the bottom of the list, a faint icon pulsed. Hauled, Law Item 11, Human Intervention Protoken. See also Cryovault Eidolon-7. Saren's chest tightened. Their markings lit a deeper blue, the color of alert focus. They opened the file. At first, it seemed dull, more bureaucracy than secret. A description of how human advisors had once assisted with early Accord tensions. An outline of their unusual problem-solving style. Calm sessions, long gaps for rest, strange leaps in logic. There were charts and testimonies from old council members when recording devices were still clumsy. Then came the part that made Saren lean closer. After the 7th stress crisis, the text read, it became clear that human-style intervention, while effective, had side effects. Humans resolved conflicts so gently and elegantly that many existing power structures collapsed. Leaders found their roles changed not by overthrow, but by quiet irrelevance. The Accord survives, but its governing class does not. This caused panic, not harm, but panic still. The founding species agreed. Human assistance must not be forced. They must not be dragged awake as tools, weapons, or last resort gods. Below, in older script, a human had added by hand, "If you need us, ask. Let us sleep if you can carry your own weight." Then in a different script, likely Lyran, another note, "Let humans sleep. Do not disturb." Saren sat very still. The idea that the galaxy had once been afraid not of human violence, but of human kindness knocked against every story the Accord told itself. The official legends framed humans as intense, unstable, too strange to leave unchecked. This file suggested something gentler and in some ways more uncomfortable. People with the power to redesign systems so that old rulers were no longer needed tended to be pushed away, no matter how kind they were. The lattice map flickered again, this time with more urgency. New stress markers flashed near core nodes. Trade delays. Border arguments stiffening into proud silence. The council would be feeling squeezed, pressed between public fear of breakdown and private fear of losing control. A new message appeared on Surin's console, marked Priori Council, Kestrel Archive, prepared to open Cryovault Eidolon-7 for strategic consultation. 7 for strategic consultation. Do not initiate until direct confirmation arrives. Treat human assets as classified instruments of Accord survival. Surin's throat tightened at the word assets. They read the message twice, then opened the system log around it. Hidden in the metadata was a tiny, half-corrupted footnote, not meant for normal staff. The archive pulled it up in faded letters. Note to future Lattice stewards: if pressures reach this point, you will be tempted to wake humans as weapons or tools. Ask them, give them rest, context, and choice. No coercion, no spectacle. If you cannot grant that, let them sleep and accept the end of your lattice. The line pulsed once, as if highlighted by some forgotten process. Saren leaned back in their chair, breathing slow, watching their own glow settle and flare. The council's order sat in the main queue. Wake a human for strategic consultation, treat them as an instrument. The oldest law's apology sat in the shadow of that order, asking for something different. Water, rest, consent, neutrality. Saren had always been taught meant doing as the Accord required while keeping personal feelings out of it. Cernine, now Stones, but neutrality also meant loyalty to the archive's deeper purpose. Protect knowledge, protect lives from being used beyond their will, protect the truth even from those who preferred simple stories. Nixa, Saren called on a low-band channel, then stopped themselves. If Nixa knew, Nixa would have to report. Nuxa was loyal to law in a way that could crush softer instincts. Saren cut the call before it connected. They looked back at the icon of Cryovault Eidolon, 7. It had no face, no name, just the soft human figure and the law wrapped around it. Like a promise, all these years, Saren had walked past the sealed door without touching it, honoring rules older than their grandparents. Now the galaxy's main structure for peace was straining, and the Council's messages grew sharper in the shared system. New pings appeared, growing more insistent. Confirm EID. OLON. 7 Wake CY Gold. Preparation. Saren opened a private log, one only they could see without a direct audit. Personal note, they said quietly. Treaty Lattice stress is rising. Council intends to wake human vault as an instrument. Oldest law index advises consent and care, not coercion. Neutrality feels less like balance and more like silence. Archive duty includes defense of sentient autonomy. Action may be required that conflicts with orders. Their markings glowed a steady, bright blue now. Saren stood, the chair sliding back in gravity that felt slightly heavier than usual. Though nothing had changed, if the Accord fears losing power more than losing the lattice, they said to the empty gallery, it may not be safe to let it choose how humans wake. They dimmed the console lights, leaving only the path markers glowing along the corridor door. Without sending confirmation to the Council, Saren transferred minimal access rights to their personal ident. Permission to enter Deep Vault Ring 12, temporary override, on Cryovault. Observation doors, and a narrow privacy field around local sensors. The system hesitated for half a second, as if expecting a higher clearance code. Then, because no one had planned for an archivist to go against the Council on behalf of a sleeping human, it accepted the commands. Saren stepped out into the curve of the hallway. The air smelled dry and clean, kept moving by unseen vents. Above, the stone-like ceiling carried faint constellations of maintenance lights. Saren started walking toward the inner rings, heart steadying into a slow, determined pace. They had lived their life keeping dangerous things sealed. Tonight, they were going to open a door. The path to Cryovault Eidolon, 7 wound deep into the archive's quiet center. Saren's identification band pinged each checkpoint, and doors sighed open with polite resistance, as if each layer wanted to ask, "Are you certain?" As Saren walked, the archive's ambient hum grew softer. Here, shielding materials were thick, and stasis fields ate stray energy. The usual mix of scanner chimes and maintenance bot footsteps faded away, leaving the simple sound of Saren's boots and breathing. Vault Ring 12's main corridor was wide and nearly empty. The doors here had no labels that common staff could read. Each entry code was wrapped in old encryption and faint warnings. Saren passed sealed chambers, holding banned thought emulation cores, failed starfold experiments, and diplomatic relics from extinct states. At the very end of the curve, a single door stood with its own pool of light. Cryovault Eidolon-7. The human script beneath the Accord glyphs looked almost antique, lines a bit uneven, as if someone had carved it by hand, refusing to let a machine do it. Let humans sleep, do not disturb. Saren paused with their hand just short of the panel. This close, the law felt less like a command and more like a plea. The council's orders sat in Saren's band like a weight. Prepare the human as an asset. The old note from the founders tugged the other way. Ask, do not force. Saren raised their palm and placed it against the access plate. Archivist Saren Vale, they said, keeping their voice steady, requesting observation entry. No collateral alerts, privacy field, local only. The plate warmed under their skin. A faint line of light traveled from Saren's hand across the door, testing authority against old law. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the locks released with a low, slow click, like old ice shifting. The door opened inward. The room beyond was cooler than the corridor, dry and still. Dim, soft blue lights shaped a circle of gentle glow around the center of the vault, leaving the edges in respectful shadow. In the center stood a single long pod, slightly raised, its surface smooth and faintly frosted as if covered in a thin layer of snow that never melted. Saren stepped inside. The door slid shut behind them, sealing with a quiet finality that made their markings flare pale in the half-dark. Up close, the pod's controls looked older than most tech Saren worked with. They were clean and well-maintained, but the design language was from a different era. Buttons instead of pure neural links, simple indicator lights instead of complex holographics. A small screen displayed vital signs in a slow, calm rhythm. Inside the pod, under clear shielding, lay a human. She looked younger than the stories made humans sound. Her hair floated slightly inside the suspension field, dark and loose around a calm face. Her features were relaxed, not tense or troubled. If not for the cables at her neck and wrists, she could have been someone taking a long, deep nap. The name on the pod's side read, Dr. Maya Caldwell, Systems Engineer, Dream Mathematic. Next to it, in smaller letters, someone had scratched a note. Let her rest between questions. Saren felt a strange pull on their chest, a mix of respect and sadness. This person had been trusted enough to be sealed here for some future need, but also not trusted enough to be asked before being stored. It fit too well with what the oldest law file had said. The control panel offered two main options: Emtane sleep and Inyatayat gentle wake sequence. The council's order wanted the second. The footnote the founders had left wanted more than a simple wake. Water, context, choice. Saren touched the panel, but did not press anything yet. Dr. Maya Caldwell, they said softly, you are being called again. The Treaty Lattice is straining. The council is afraid. I am afraid they will use you instead of ask you. Their own words surprised them. Lyrans did not often speak feelings aloud without need. But this did not feel like a standard procedure. This felt like standing before someone else's bed. Saren set wake parameters carefully. No rapid temperature change. No sudden chemical dumps. They selected a schedule that brought Maya back to waking slowly over several minutes, with built-in checks to pause if her body showed distress. Then, ignoring the small spike of risk in their own system, Saren added an unusual step, a physical environment request. They dimmed the chamber lights even further and routed a small drink printer from the corridor. Just inside the door. "If you need us, ask," the old human note had said. "Let us sleep if you can carry your own weight." "We are asking," Saren said quietly, and pressed initiate. The pod's gentle systems stirred. Temperature shifted by less than a degree. The gel around Maya's body softened, letting natural weight return bit by bit. The cables at her neck and wrists began to retract, sliding out with slow care. On the screen, her vital signs brightened. Heartbeat rose a little, steady and strong. Brain activity climbed from deep sleep waves toward the patterns of shallow dream. Saren stepped back, giving her space, hands folded, markings dimmed as much as they could manage. Maya's eyes moved under closed lids. Her fingers twitched. After a long, quiet minute, her eyelids fluttered open, halfway. Then slowly more, as if the light itself were heavy. She blinked at the pod's interior, uncomprehending, then focused on Saren beyond the clear shield. Her voice came out rough, more breath than sound. "Water?" Saren nearly laughed in relief. So simple. Not demands, not panic, just a basic physical need. "Yes," Saren said at once, moving to the printer. They selected composition based on her old medical record, human safe, slightly warm with balanced electrolytes. A small transparent cup filled in seconds. The pod's cover slid open with a soft sigh, retracting smoothly. Cool air washed out. Maya's skin prickled slightly in the draft, raising fine bumps along her arms. Saren stepped close, but not too close, holding out the cup. "I am Saren Vale," they said. "Lyran archivist. You are in the Kestrel Archive. The date is Accord Year 9. Tism 407. You have been asleep a very long time. Here is water." Maya pushed herself up on one elbow, moving slowly like someone waking from an afternoon nap that had gone too deep. She looked at the cup, then at Saren's gently glowing forearms. Her gaze did not flinch at the alien features. Instead, she studied Saren as if taking inventory. "Thank you," she said, her voice gaining a little strength. She took the cup with a careful hand and drank in small, precise sips, not gulping, even though her body clearly wanted it. When she finished, she held the cup between both palms as if using it to balance her sense of the present. "Kestrel Archive," she repeated. "Good. That means we did not lose everything." Her eyes moved past Saren to the room, then to the door, as if she were placing herself on a mental map. "Year 9407, she added. "Long enough." She paused, then looked back at Saren. "How bad is it?" Serin's markings brightened with surprise. You know why you were woken? Maya gave a slight, tired smile. People do not pull humans out of cryo for mild updates. If you woke me, the system that replaced humans is in trouble. Treaty structure? Transport backbone? Or did you break your planetary thermoregulation this time? The Treaty Lattice, Saren said. It is straining. The Council ordered your wake as a strategic consultation. It intends to treat you as an asset. The oldest law says humans should be asked, not used. I woke you alone. There are no Council representatives here, yet. Maya listened without interrupting, features calm, hands resting in her lap now that she had set the empty cup aside. Her gaze was steady, but there was a softness around her eyes, the look of someone still halfway in a dream. I appreciate the alone part, she said finally. She swung her legs over the side of the pod and sat up fully. The support shelf slid away, leaving her in a simple, close-fitting suit meant for cryo patients. She stretched her arms slowly, testing joints and muscles, then rotated her neck with a faint crack. Saren looked away politely for a moment, then back when Maya started speaking again. Tell me the symptoms, Maya said. Not the Council's version, the network's version. Saren pulled up their wrist display and projected a small, stable image into the air. The Treaty Lattice map with its flickering nodes and stressed routes. Maya's eyes focused on it with sharp interest. She slid off the pod and stood, a little unsteady. Saren tensed without meaning to, ready to catch her. But she found her balance on her own. She asked, nodding at the projection. Yes, Saren said, stepping aside. Maya walked closer and lifted her hand, tracing slow paths through the glowing lines without touching the display. Her fingers moved from hub to hub, following the pattern of stress markers. She did not rush. Every few moments she stopped, closed her eyes for a second, and then reopened them, as if she needed tiny pauses to let intuition catch up. Interesting, she murmured. So you did it. You tied politics into space-time itself. You turned agreements into physics. Saren blinked. You say that as if it was not obvious. Maya gave another faint smile. It was obvious we would think about it. Less obvious that the Accord would accept it. She pointed to a cluster of nodes where stress signals were the highest. These disputes here, they are not just disagreements. Each one is pulling on the same underlying geometry. The more leaders refuse to give ground, the tighter the lattice pulls. It is like asking space to hold two shapes at once. Is that bad? Saren asked, though they knew the answer. It is tiring, Maya said. For the lattice, for your ships, for your people. The structure is loyal to agreements, even when the agreements are stubborn and badly written. She stepped back and massaged her temple lightly with 2 fingers. Her movements were controlled, but Saren caught the subtle droop of her shoulders. You just woke, Saren said. We do not need answers at once. Maya laughed softly, a gentle, almost private sound. You say that now. The Council will say something different. She looked around the chamber again. I will need a workspace. Not a war room, not a council chamber. Something quiet, dim light. A place where I can sleep without being watched by a crowd. Siren nodded. There is an unused calibration room on my gallery level. I can adjust lighting and sound. I can route lattice data there. It will not impress the council. Good, Maya said. Impressing the council is usually how you break the galaxy a second time. Saren studied her. Her calm did not feel cold or distant. It felt tired but steady, like someone who had held a lot of panic before and decided not to add more to the pile. You study while you sleep? Saren asked, remembering the term dream mathematician on the pod. Maya tilted her head. Study is not the right word. When I am half asleep, my brain stops forcing itself into neat lines. Patterns jump together on their own. I take notes between naps. Most of the notes look like nonsense to others. Some of them fix things. Dream mathematics, Saren said. Something like that. Maya agreed. I think best when I do not try too hard. She rubbed the back of her neck where the cryo cables had been, and then looked back at the lattice map. Your problem is about consent. You have built a network that holds people even when they do not want to be held. It will hold until it cannot, and then it will fall harder than it needs to. Saren felt the truth of that, like a shift in air pressure. I have seen this story before, Maya said gently. Different shapes, same pattern. She took a slow breath. I will need somewhere to write that is not connected to your normal systems. My notes upset ordinary analysis tools. They try to correct them into forms they understand, and that ruins the useful parts. I can arrange a freestanding surface and simple recording devices, Saren said, non-networked. Manual backups only. Perfect, Maya said. And I will need naps. Many small naps. Do not let the council stand over my bed. The way she said it was calm, but there was steel under the softness. Saren nodded at once. I have not told them you are awake, Saren admitted. That is a violation of procedure. I wanted you to have a choice first. Maya met Saren's eyes with a look that was both tired and warm. Thank you. That makes this easier. She straightened a little. Here is my consent, Saren Vale. I will help the Treaty Lattice, but I do it on my terms. I will not perform for a crowd. I will not be paraded as a weapon. If they cannot accept that, they can let me sleep and face their own limits. Saren's markings brightened and then settled into a steady, soft blue. This was what the oldest law had asked for. Ask and accept the answer. I will protect that condition, Saren said, even if it makes the council angry. Maya studied Saren again, as if assessing not just their words, but the way they stood, the way their light shifted. You are an archivist, she said. You were supposed to stay neutral. Neutrality is not the same as obedience, Saren replied quietly. The archive protects more than records. It protects the terms people are remembered under. Maya smiled again. A little wider, this time. Then let us go find this quiet room of yours, she said. You can show me your star's latest problems. I will nap on them for a while and see what rises. Saren led her back to the door. The vault recognized the change in status and logged it silently. Human subject EID. OLON-7. Archive. No external alerts went out, because Saren had set local privacy. As they stepped into the corridor, the lights adjusted up by a fraction for safety. Maya squinted, then relaxed as her eyes adapted. Thin gravity, she noted, feeling her weight with each step. Nice for old joints. You are not old, Saren said, then paused. Relative to me, perhaps, but relative to your prior time, Maya chuckled. Relative to the last time I filled out a form, I am very old. They rode a slow gravity lift up to Gallery 7. Saren used the ride to route access. Lattice feeds to a secure, isolated buffer. Door locks for the unused calibration room. Lighting controls responsive to both Maya's presence and Saren's manual settings. The calibration room itself was small and plain, with smooth walls and a single, adjustable bench in the center. Once, it had been used to fine-tune sensor arrays. Now it stood empty, a perfect quiet corner. Saren dimmed the lights until the room was washed in gentle twilight. They drew a physical surface from the wall, a simple metal table, and placed a stack of blank synth paper and an old-style pen on it. No neural links, Maya observed with approval. Good. Those tend to try too hard to help. She sat on the bench and tested its softness with a slight bounce. This will do. I will need a blanket at some point, and more water. I will bring both, Saren said. Maya picked up the pen and held it between her fingers, turning it slowly. Her gaze went distant, not lost but already drifting toward the half-dream state she had described. I will start by letting my mind walk along the lattice while my body rests, she said. I will wake up with fragments. None of it will make sense to you at first sight. That is fine. Do not feed it into your analysis engines. I will not, Saren promised. Maya lay down on the bench, curling slightly on her side. In the soft light, she looked even more like someone taking a rest after a long day than like a mythical solver of galactic crises. Wake me in about 3 of your archive hours, she said, already sounding drowsy, or if the lattice map does anything truly strange. What counts as truly strange? Saren asked. Maya's eyes were nearly closed now. If space starts, refusing to host your agreements, she murmured. If roots vanish when people lie about consent, things like that. Saren repeated faintly, standing guard at the doorway. Within a minute, Maya's breathing settled into the slow rhythm of someone deeply asleep, but ready to wake if needed. The pen rested loosely in her hand. Saren put the lattice map on a wall display, where Maya could see it when she opened her eyes. In Gallery 7, outside, the console still showed a galaxy trying to hold itself together the hard way. Stress markers pulsed, council messages piled up in the shared queue, asking for wake confirmations that Saren had not yet sent. Saren watched both the galaxy's strained network and the sleeping human in the dim room, feeling the strange peace of holding a secret that might change everything. What they had instead was a dream mathematician building a new kind of answer, half in sleep, half in waking thought, in a quiet room at the heart of an archive that had finally chosen not just to store history, but to bend it gently toward consent. The first time Maya woke from a nap in the calibration room, she did not look like a savior or a legend. She looked like someone who had fallen asleep over homework. She lay curled on the bench, one arm under her head, the other hanging off the side, pen still held between loose fingers. A thin trail of ink marked her palm where the pen had slipped. The stack of synth paper on the table beside her was no longer clean. It was scattered with lines, arrows, symbols, half-finished diagrams that crossed each other in ways that made Saren's eyes blur. Saren had stayed just outside the open doorway as promised, watching the lattice map on the wall. Stress levels had risen slightly during the 3 hours Maya slept, then steadied. No routes had vanished, but several had begun to flicker more often, as if undecided about holding at exactly 3 archive hours. As Saren prepared to step in and wake her, Maya's hand twitched. She inhaled sharply and rolled onto her back, blinking up at the ceiling. "Okay," she said to no one, voice hoarse. That was unpleasant. Saren stepped inside. "Did you dream?" "In about 7 directions," Maya said, pushing herself up slowly. She rubbed at the ink stain on her palm, then frowned at the papers. "Did I write anything useful?" "I did not look closely," Saren said. Maya gave a small nod of approval and reached for the top sheet. The page was covered in loops and clusters of symbols, some human, some not, some that did not belong to any known script at all. The lines did not run left to right or top to bottom. They coiled, doubled back, broke off, and then rejoined at sharp angles. Saren tilted their head. "Our analysis systems would assign that a very low readability score." "They always do," Maya said. "That is why I did not let you connect them to this." She ran her finger along one winding line, following it with narrowed eyes. Following it with narrowed eyes. Her hand stopped at a place where 2 shapes almost touched but did not. "There," she said quietly. "Consent." Saren moved closer. "That scribble means consent." Maya smiled faintly. "Not the scribble, the gap." She held the paper up between them. "Look, all these connections here are forced. They assume that if a root exists, it must be used when someone powerful demands it. That is how you built your lattice. Space folds because agreements were signed once, not because they are being chosen now." "That is how law works," Saren said. "Once decided, it persists until changed." "Then you tied that to physics," Maya said, tapping another cluster of symbols. "You asked space-time to honor those decisions forever. You did not leave it away to say, 'No, this agreement has rotted. I will not hold it anymore.'" Saren frowned. "Space does not speak. It does by breaking your toys," Maya said gently. She set the paper down and swung her legs off the bench. In my half-dream, I was walking along the lattice as if it were a real structure. Every time I came to a junction where two sides hated the current deal, but could not back out without shame, it stretched thin. It made a tearing sound. She caught herself. Not a sound, a strain. Sarah nodded slowly. Our sensors show stress in those areas, but how does consent change physics? Maya picked up another sheet, where she had drawn a series of circles, linked by lines. Some lines were heavy and dark, some faint, some cut off with small cross marks. Right now, she said, your network assumes that if a treaty exists on record, the route between those parties is valid. Gates open, information flows. Ships pass. Even when both sides secretly hate the deal, the structure still carries it because no one has formally changed the papers. That is true. Saren said, otherwise trade would freeze while people argued. Trade is freezing anyway, Maya pointed out, slowly, unevenly, and in dangerous ways. She circled two nodes with her pen. What I am suggesting is this. The lattice should stop trusting signatures alone. It should check, in real time, whether both sides mean it when they use a route, or enforce a clause. If either side does not truly agree anymore, the structure should refuse. The gate should not open. The enforcement should not hold. Saren stared. You want to give feelings legal force? Hidden feelings, not hidden, Maya said, quietly, declared. I am not talking about reading minds. I am talking about formal, ongoing consent signals built into the lattice itself. She drew a small symbol next to a line between two circles. Imagine that every lattice connection has a heartbeat. For it to stay open, both sides have to keep sending a simple yes, not once at the start, but all the time. If the yes stops from either side, the link goes into a softer state. Not war, not collapse, just pause and traffic halts, Saren said. Trade fails. People starve. Not if you build in dignity, Maya said. She set down the pen and looked at Saren more directly. You think that if a leader admits they do not want a deal anymore, they will be punished, mocked, or forced. So they cling to bad agreements until something breaks much worse. That is why your council is clinging now. They would rather watch space strain than admit they wrote laws that no longer fit. Saren's markings brightened, not in anger, but in recognition. Yes. So Maya continued, do not make the act of changing your mind look like failure. Give people a path away from shame. She flipped to another sheet. This one was more structured. Pairs of boxes with arrows between them. Notes in the margins, small loops and symbols connecting some pairs and skipping others. These are what I call pride buffers, she said. Places in the system where leaders can back out or change a term without losing face. You build standard stories into the lattice for why a route might pause. Seasonal flux. Calibration cycles, safety reviews. Things that let a planet say no more without saying we were wrong and weak. Saren considered that. You want to hide their retreat in polite fiction. Not hide, Maya said. Frame. She pointed at a box labeled calibration period. If a leader pulls consent from a route, the lattice does not announce they refused. It announces, this route is in recalibration for 6 months to improve safety and fairness. Everyone can adjust. No one has to stand on a stage and admit they let their people suffer for pride. That sounds like lying, Saren said. Though their glow shifted with interest. It depends on intent, Maya replied. If the recalibration period actually leads to better terms, then the polite story is true. You are not tricking people. You are giving them a way to change without being humiliated. She leaned back against the wall, eyes closing for a moment. You cannot fix systems without considering pride. Hurt pride breaks more networks than greed ever has. Saren watched her carefully. You think the lattice will accept this redesign? It is not a mind, Maya said, opening her eyes again. It is a structure built out of agreements and pathways. You already tied it to human and alien decisions. I am just adding more decisions. Ongoing ones. She stood, walked to the wall where the lattice map hovered, and rested her fingertips near a cluster of stressed nodes without touching the display. Right now, these routes exist because people once said yes. She went on. Some still mean it. Some do not. But they are stuck. If we change the rules, we tell the lattice, hold only what is being freely chosen now. The rest, release gently. Saren shivered. The council will not like that. They depend on frozen agreements to keep their own authority steady. If those agreements can be withdrawn, their power dims. Maya's mouth curved in a sad smile. Yes, that is why they put humans to sleep the last time. They saw us redesign systems so that people no longer needed to ask permission from old structures. That scared them. She looked back at Saren. You read the oldest law file, yes? Yes, Saren said quietly. It said humans had dissolved power structures without force. That leaders panicked. Then you know what will happen if this works, Maya said. Border gates will still function. Trade will still move. But the council will not be able to force routes open, to punish or reward. They will have to persuade. Their threats will simply fail to take hold. Saren imagined it. A council command sent to open a route for a political show of force, only for the lattice to stay quiet, because the worlds on the other end had not agreed. For the first time, the galaxy's basic structure would say no to its rulers. Will the lattice break before you can finish? Saren asked. Maya studied the map again. Not if we move soon. It is tired, not dying. It just does not know it is allowed to stop carrying old promises. She turned back to the table and picked up another sheet, scanning her own scribbles with a small frown. There are a few math parts I need to clean up. Right now, these are just dream sketches. I have to turn them into a real specification the lattice nodes can accept. Can I help? Saren asked. Not with your equations, but with anything else. Maya thought for a moment. I need full technical access to the lattice's binding layer. The part where you tied law to space-time. That is probably classified above your normal clearance. If you can get it quietly, that would save time. Saren hesitated. That layer is guarded by both the archive and the council. Opening it without authorization could be treated as treason. Maya's gaze softened. Then do not risk yourself beyond what you can live with. I will work with what you can bring. Just remember that if we do nothing, the lattice will rip under its own strain. That will take far more with it than your rank. Saren nodded slowly. The choice settled in their chest, like a stone they were willing to carry. I will try. With care, Maya set the papers back down and rubbed her eyes. I also need more naps, short ones this time. Waking up too far from the dream breaks the links. I have to catch them while they are still slippery. I will stand guard, Saren said. No council observers, no cameras, except the basic medical scanner. You have my word. Maya lay down again, this time on her back, the pen resting on her chest. Wake me in 1 hour, she said, or sooner if your map starts twisting in ways that make you sick to look at. It already does that, Saren admitted. Maya smiled. Eyes already closing. Then you are seeing clearly. That is a start. Her breathing evened out. Within minutes, her muscles relaxed. The pen slid to her side, but her fingers caught it again in some half-conscious reflex. Saren stepped back into the gallery, sealed the calibration room door to outside access, and turned to the main console. The lattice overlay still flickered, but now their mind overlaid Maya's concept on top of it. Lines that pulsed, not with static obligation, but with an ongoing yes or no. To reach the binding layer, Saren would have to travel deeper into the archive systems than normal archivists ever did. Access to that layer existed for emergencies only, under the direct authority of the Unified Accord Council. There were back routes, though, old pathways built to let Kestrel staff maintain the physical anchors that kept the lattice stable around the archive. Saren opened a private maintenance console and requested a diagnostics view of the local lattice anchor, a carefully shaped mass buried at the core of the Kestrel moon. The system asked for reason. Saren selected STRUCT, Tural Stress Assessment, which was technically true. The console blossomed into a complex graph of forces, alignments, and binding constants. Hidden under those, faint and gray, lay the interface to the law physics binding protocols, the very layer Maya needed. Saren's identification band flashed a warning. Council level ASIS request detected. Logged for Revere. They swallowed, then overrode the log's destination, routing it into a local archive buffer instead of the Council's live watch. That was a serious violation. But the archive had always been designed to hold dangerous things, including inconvenient truths. Archive priority, Saren murmured. Protection of structural integrity requires temporary isolation from political supervision. The system hesitated. Old lines of code written by founders who had distrusted central power as much as they relied on it, woke up and took Saren's side. Busher, isolation granted for 12 Alkal hours. Saren exhaled slowly. 12 hours to let Maya work without the Council knowing she had her hands on the deepest layer of their control system. They packaged the binding documentation removed all direct council authentication hooks, and sent a local copy to the isolated device in the calibration room. The transfer completed with a soft chime. Maya's pen scratched faintly. A few minutes later, as if her sleeping hand was responding to new information at the edge of awareness, the quiet did not last. 4 hours into this secret work, a sharp alert cut across Surin's console. Incoming console transmission high priority. Destination: Kestrel Archive, Volt Ring 12 Control. The Council had finally noticed that Cryovault Eidolon-7 status had changed from sealed to active. Even with Saren's privacy field, some outer indicator must have tripped. The transmission data showed the sender, Chancellor Odrin Salk, the public face of the Unified Accord Council. Saren accepted the link. The Chancellor's form appeared in a light window. Tall, with dark, reflective skin that caught light like oil on water, adorned with the formal silver bands. His eyes were sharp and careful. "Archivist Saren Vale," he said. "You have been busy." Saren forced their markings to stay calm, not brightening too quickly. "Chancellor, the Treaty Lattice stress reports reached Kestrel. I prepared for possible interventions as ordered." "You prepared very thoroughly," Salk said. "Our monitors show human vital signs active in Cryovault Eidolon-7, yet we did not receive your confirmation of wake sequence initiation." "I followed the oldest law procedure," Saren said. "I initiated a gentle wake, as the Founders advised." The Chancellor narrowed his eyes. "The Founders are dead. The Accord stands. Our instructions said strategic consultation. That implies coordination with the Council, not private conversation between an archivist and a human." Saren chose their next words carefully. "The law also says humans must not be treated as weapons or tools. They must be asked. I judged that early Council presence might frame their role inappropriately." Salk's lips tightened. "You overstep, Archivist. Your role is to maintain containment, not interpret founding intent. The Archive's role is to protect dangerous things," Saren said quietly, "including people." Salk's gaze grew colder. "Is the human coherent?" "Yes," Saren said. "She understands the problem. She has requested a quiet workspace. She is working, and you have given her access to Lattice data.